Michael Q Sullivan with Empower Texans does a great job of that. He joins us this morning via phone. Good morning, sir. Thanks for joining the Voice of Freedom.
Hey, good morning. It's great to be with you.
Well, let's first start off with an article that you posted on your website, empowertexans.com, and talking about the Texas Tribune and their attitude, which really to me represents the attitude of the left toward citizen participation in government.
Yeah, it really is shocking. Probably for a whole lot of folks, I know Texas Tribune, you have them on fairly regularly, but for a lot of folks, the Texas Tribune doesn't enter their circle. It's kind of it's an Austin-based news magazine, kind of an experiment by a couple liberal donors to do online news. George Soros has gotten involved, giving them some money recently. It's kind of the thing coming from the left in terms of trying to once again mask their liberal spin in journalism. But the Texas Tribune sits out there, a very big presence in the Texas Capitol. They've been hiring up reporters left and right from the dinosaur media. And they try to present themselves as just good, unbiased reporters. And, of course, we all know that there's no thing as an unbiased reporter. Everyone has biases. And it just came out in this glowing Technicolor rant from their managing editor, Ross Ramsey, who's a very nice man. He's I consider him a friend. He's a nice guy, but he's a liberal. And he just launches into this tirade about how legislators shouldn't be listening to the children, meaning the voters. That watching all these legislators listening to their voters is like children who run the household. That the parents just need to stand up and say, "Shut up and eat your vegetables," by which he meant, shut up, open your wallet, pay more taxes, and let us run government no matter what you think you want. That's troubling.
Yes.
When we say, voters shouldn't be engaged, voters shouldn't be participating. Ooh, that's scary. That's not what our founding fathers anticipated.
But isn't that, at the end of the day, the main difference between conservatives and liberals is the philosophy of government?
Oh, it really is. And it's so funny because liberals wrap themselves in the cloak of, we're for the little guy. Well, what they're for is doing things in the name of the little guy. They just really hate it when the little guy gets uppity and says something. This is the difference between, I think, the forces of liberty and the forces of statism. Statism really believes, the folks who adhere, the liberals, the progressives, whatever you want to call them, they really believe that there's this wise elite who should be allowed to rule, that they're the ones who have the answers, and clearly it's them. And the rest of us should merely accept the rule that's given. It's a very antiquated view. It's kind of the divine right of kings stuff. Here it is, 7:50 in the morning, and everyone is turning off the radio right now. But this is a very old philosophy. It's the thing that our founding fathers rebelled against. It's the thing that our nation was started to work in opposition to. Those of us on the liberty side, we believe that in the common man you find real solutions. That it's in human beings and the glorious chaos of the marketplace where you find governing wisdom.
Yeah.
And it's two different worldviews, and sometimes the liberals let their elitism shine through, and that's what we saw this week in the Texas Tribune.
That's great stuff. Now, let's talk about the Texas legislature. We only have just a few more days left in this edition of the Texas legislature. Your thoughts about what has happened so far, and will we see a special session?
Well, one of the worst things I think that we could see is a special session. We should not have a special session. A special session would not be good for us. As folks may or may not recall from their 7th grade Texas government classes, the Texas legislature meets for 140 days every other year, whether we need them to or not. It would be better if they met for 2 days every 140 years. Then we might start getting somewhere. For now, we have them every other year. The only thing they have to do constitutionally is pass a budget. And, of course, that's always the hardest thing to do because you're spending other people's money. There's no end to the number of things they want to spend on. This is a difficult budget time, and we're coming down to the wire on having a state budget. Certainly there are people who are saying that, oh, you need to have a special session because we need to find ways to tax and to spend and go on and on. I really don't think that we're going to have, excuse me, I really don't think that we're going to have a special session. I think that in these last 3 days of the session, the legislative leaders will come to some sort of conclusion about school finance, which is currently the hanging point. From the Liberty side, there's very little damage now that they can do. They've set the final numbers in the budget. Now it's about how to disperse the dollars. And that's, heady stuff. That's important stuff. But there are two different paths they can take. The Senate wants to go one way, the House wants to go the other. But no one has an incentive in the leadership to stick around. Whether you're Governor Perry, who, may or may not be wanting to run for president, you can't have a special session hanging over your head.
Yeah.
If you're David Dewhurst, who may or may not be wanting to run for the U.S. Senate, you don't want a special session hanging over your head. If you're any number of legislators who want to run for governor or want to run for lieutenant governor or, whatever else, all the shuffling that goes on, you don't want a special session. Or if you're just one of these legislators who actually has a real job and needs to go home and make money for your family, they also don't want a special session. So a lot of good reasons that we probably won't see one, but it's going to be tense for the next 3 days here in Austin.
Very quickly, give me a scorecard on this particular legislative session. A+, B, C. How do you rate this session of the Texas legislature?
I probably will downgrade the rating based on how many self-proclaimed conservatives there were in the legislative session, in this legislature.
Mm-hmm.
With 101 Republicans in the Texas House, we should have seen a lot better outcomes than we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't seen a lot of harm come out of the session. So the first rule of medicine, do no harm. We haven't seen a lot of harm. On the other hand, we haven't seen anything really shockingly great either. In fact, one thing we do know for sure coming out of this legislative session is small businesses in Texas are facing a, several $1 million, $100 million tax increase because the legislature failed to make permanent the small business tax cuts that were made temporary a couple years ago. So, this coming fall, every small business in the state is going to be hit with a tax increase. Under a Republican supermajority House, a Republican-controlled Senate, having every statewide office held by a Republican, small businesses are going to be getting a tax hike. That's inexcusable.
Wow.
On the other hand, we have a budget that's balanced. So there's something to be said for that.
Wow. Michael Q. Sullivan, EmpowerTexans.com. Thank you, sir, for doing it. It's always a pleasure talking with you, sir.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks, Michael. You too.